Hey guys. Hello. I think I am live. I'm not even going to pretend to say that I know what happened because I have no idea what happened in the last video. So sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you for sticking it out and tuning back in. I will wrap up with just a few more comments. For those of you that heard the first few moments of what I was talking about, I wasn't very far through, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start over and recap quickly. And please let me know if you have any questions. We will visit about this a little bit more next week. I think, not sure if Liv mentioned it or not, but I think next week is going to be our final Live with Your Lobbyist episode for this legislative session. We will keep you posted, but we'll talk about this a little more next week too. So what I wanted to talk about and what I was in the middle of talking about was legislative engagement in the postseason. We're in the few final weeks of the legislative session, and then we have a huge interim in this state. We don't meet again in a legislative session until January of 2021. So we have got roughly 18 months coming up in which we have little to no consistent interaction with our legislators because they're not all gathered in Helena. They return to their normal lives, and everybody sort of breathes a sigh of relief that we get a bit of a break from the legislature. But fostering those relationships and creating new ones during the interim are great ways to ensure that our work continues to be effective for future sessions. So a few things that I wanted to share for you guys is that there's a lot of things we can do in the interim to work with our legislators. And I think one of the easiest ways to start is simply by thanking them for their service. As I said earlier, if you caught the first few moments, these people give up massive chunks of their time to serve and are not always treated very nicely for their service. They get a lot of flack and a lot of nasty emails and phone calls. And so I think it's really important to reach out and thank them. Thank the teachers who took sabbaticals from teaching positions. Thank the business owners who hired a manager or trained someone to fill in their stead. Thank the farmers and ranchers who left the farm or the ranch to a spouse or child or a sibling for the winter time to come and give of themselves and of their time for the state of Montana and for our general population. And I think it's really easy. Just send them a thank you. Send them an email. Send them a text message if you know them well. Make a phone call, but sincerely thank them for their time. My favorite option, and the one I really recommend, is make it a little bit more public and write a letter to the editor thanking them for their service, thanking them for work on specific pieces of legislation if one comes to mind. Take out an ad on behalf of your county farm bureau thanking your local representatives for what they have done. So those are really easy ways to start and easy ways that you can continue to connect and engage with your elected officials throughout the interim. The other easy suggestion that I think is simple to accomplish, especially for working with your local representatives, is simply make sure to incorporate and invite them to county farm bureau events. Bring them to a board meeting and have them participate by sharing their legislative experience and their interpretation of how the session went and what he or she feels they accomplished successfully and did not. Have that opportunity for your board of directors to have a little Q&A with your local legislators. Invite them to summer picnics. Invite them to county annual meetings. It's really important that they learn to know more of their constituency in environments that are slightly more relaxed than committee hearings in the legislature. So those are really good opportunities for them to get out and learn more about agriculture within their districts. So would really encourage you to do that. I also think another great thing is just to incorporate them in events. If you're participating in or hosting a farm fair in the coming weeks. Invite your legislators just to stop by and walk through what you're doing and see how the Farm Bureau is impacting your communities. Many county farm bureaus are awarding scholarships this time of year. Invite those local legislators to sit on the selection committee and participate in awarding scholarships to young people in your communities. Those are really good and arguably, I would say, very easy ways to foster and build relationships with your elected officials. And chances are that most of you already have a pretty well-established relationship with whoever your local senator or representative is, and that's great. We want you to keep building that. We want you to continue to foster that relationship and to continue to incorporate them either in things you're doing personally in your business or as a county farm bureau. But one other area that we really need to focus on and emphasize a lot, not only in this interim, but going forward in general, is that our rural population and representation in Helena is shrinking. That's not a new trend. That's not a new statistic. We say it all the time, but it's true. We know that rural communities are declining in population, thereby our representation in Helena is shrinking. And that's not something that's going to change. In fact, it's likely only going to become an even wider gap in future legislatures. We're on the cusp of another redistricting in the state of Montana, and it's important that you as rural community leaders and farmers and ranchers who are engaged with your legislature are a part of that process and vocalize how important it is that rural Montana has adequate representation in our state's capital. So a new component that I think is going to become increasingly important is to reach out a little bit beyond the borders of your home, Senate, and House district. We really need to work on connecting with and establishing relationships with urban legislators that are not necessarily representing you as a constituent directly, but are certainly guiding and changing the policies that affect you and the state of Montana. So some ways that I think we can reach out and begin doing this, because this takes a little bit more time than just thanking your local legislator, who in all actuality might be a neighbor down the road. So again, I think you start by thanking them. Introduce yourself, thank them for their service. This is probably best suited through a phone call or an email because you may not know them. And so it's important to introduce yourself, tell them who you are, why you valued their service in the Montana legislature, and just that you would love to be able to incorporate them in local county activities to answer any questions they might have about farming and ranching and agriculture in this state, and learn to be a bit of a resource for them. Again, include them in events as well. They might not be directly representing you, but oftentimes a lot of these legislators who don't have agricultural experience are looking for opportunities to learn. They're looking for people to ask questions of, and so it's very important that you make yourself available. Make yourself available, make your county farm bureau events available, and ask these people to come. Now, I realize that for some of our county farm bureau members, your geographic proximity to what we would consider an urban center in the state of Montana is pretty far and not convenient for inviting them to an annual meeting, but you can still reach out for correspondence. You can still invite them to like your county farm bureau Facebook page. If you do a newsletter, share that with an urban legislator that you've adopted or that you want to foster a relationship with, and communicate with them regularly. I think that this is another opportunity where I will really lean on and encourage members to step even further outside of what might be your comfort zone. But this is a great opportunity to invite these people out to the farmer ranch and get them on the ground and show them an afternoon of a day in the life and what it looks like to plant wheat in the spring, what it looks like to harvest sugar beets, what it looks like to ship calves or to move cows in the summer or come off of a grazing pasture in the fall. So those are really important opportunities that I think it's easy to invite a couple people. You don't have to start big. You don't have to bring a busload of people to where you're coming, but I would encourage you to, work with your local legislator, involve them and say, hey, we'd really like to get a couple folks who aren't familiar with the industry to come to our community. We have a couple stops lined up for them. Would you want to be involved in this and help us show them around? And that's a really great way to still incorporate your local representative, but also provide a bit of a conduit to help you build a new relationship with an urban legislator that you might not have known before. And I think that, again, I'll say, while you might not directly be their constituent, experiences like these help these legislators paint a clear picture of how the policies that they're making in Helena truly impact you as a business owner, impact you as a natural resource manager, and impact the economic backbone of the state of Montana. So these are honestly relatively small inputs that can over time foster really big results. So I don't want this to be taken lightly. Again, I also don't expect that everybody's going to run out and do this in the next month. Be patient. You might just need to start small and introduce yourself, but be patient and be consistent. Continually make yourself available as that resource. Consistently check in. Mark your calendar for once a month. Set an alarm on your phone and send that person an email and let them know what's up. If you've got any events coming up that they'd like to attend, and how you'd be happy to answer any questions for them in the interim. Consistently make that a part of not only your personal advocacy efforts, but also a County Farm Bureau program of work. And that will help give people more encouragement to get involved and reach out to you when they do have questions about agriculture. Finally, the last thing that I'll share this morning is to do your own work. And you're probably thinking, well, that's a stupid thing to say, because all you've been talking about for the last 10 minutes, Chelcie, is doing work. But what I mean by that is take a little time to reflect on your own personal outreach and advocacy style. How do you think that went for you this legislative session? Or if you haven't been very active and want to start, what do you think you need some help on when it comes to learning how to effectively communicate with people? So take a little time to identify your strengths and weaknesses when it comes to topics that you know a lot about and you're comfortable communicating on. Are you comfortable standing up in front of a room and talking to legislators? Are you more comfortable writing a letter to the editor? Are you more comfortable just posting pictures on your Instagram account or your Facebook of spring planting and harvest and calving season or lambing season? Those are also extremely impactful and influential in their own way. So figure out what works for you, but also be willing and open-minded to push yourselves and learn a little bit more. We've got a ton of resources and access to different leadership training resources, as well as advocacy training tips and techniques and mechanisms for how you can implement this both on your own farm or ranch, but also as a County Farm Bureau effort. So I would encourage you to reach out to me if you've got questions about that, if that's something you want to incorporate into more of what you're doing on the daily. And I'd be happy to visit with you about ways that Farm Bureau can help get those resources in your hands and help you to create these connections with not only your local legislators, but also our more urban friends too. So with that, I'm going to jump off. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulty here. Bill Gates, we are not. So, or maybe Steve Jobs, I don't know. Either one, we're not them. And so thanks for bearing with us. We'll try this again next week. I'll recap some of this and maybe have some more things to talk about. As Liv mentioned in part 1 of this video, please let us know your comments. Throw those in there and we'll be happy to get back to you as soon as we can. Hope everyone is enjoying this springtime snowstorm in Montana and that everything's going well for you. And we'll talk to you again next week. Have a great weekend. Bye.